Imagine I asked you 10 questions, no math problems, and no specialized knowledge either. No. Just very simple questions about the world and about yourself. How many of them could you answer? Probably fewer than you think, because some questions are like an optical illusion. The more closely you look, the less you understand what you're actually looking at. Do you know that moment when you suddenly find yourself awake at night and one thought simply refuses to go away? The longer you think about it, the stranger and more abstract everything seems. Or you look at an old baby picture of yourself and wonder why you cannot remember even the smallest thing from that period of your life. At first, thoughts like these seem harmless, but behind them lie some of the greatest unsolved mysteries of all. And the surprising part is this: it's not simply that we don't have the answer. For some of these questions, we don't even know whether the human mind will ever be able to find one. These are exactly the 10 questions we're going to explore today, and the further we go, the clearer it becomes that they may reveal less about the universe than about the remarkable limits of our own thinking. Almost everyone knows this game from childhood. A small child asks, "Why is the sky blue?" You explain it. Then the next question comes immediately. Why? And then again. Eventually, you reach a point where even adults can only shrug their shoulders. Now ask yourself a different question. Why is there anything at all? At first, it almost sounds ridiculous. Of course there is something. After all, we're not sitting here in an empty nothingness. But the longer you think about it, the stranger the question becomes. Why does a universe exist at all? Why do stars, planets, or even we ourselves exist instead of simply nothing? Modern cosmology describes with remarkable precision how our universe has evolved since the Big Bang. But this is exactly where that first question already reaches its limit, because another one immediately follows. What came before the Big Bang? Some physicists say that this question makes no sense because time itself began with the Big Bang. Others suspect that our universe may be just one of many. Still others believe that we will never find the answer. Even if we could answer that second question one day, the next one would immediately remain. Why do the laws of nature exist at all? Why do these particular rules exist instead of completely different ones? Honestly, I find this question almost even crazier than the Big Bang itself, because we take the laws of physics for granted, even though no one can explain why they exist in the first place. This may be where our brain reaches its first real limit, because with some why questions, every answer seems to be followed immediately by the next one. On a clear summer evening, one glance at the night sky is often enough. For a brief moment, everything feels peaceful. But then, that one thought appears. Are we really alone in the universe? With hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy alone and likely trillions of planets, a lonely universe feels almost impossible to imagine. And yet, to this day, we have found no clear evidence that intelligent life exists anywhere else. Honestly, I'm not even sure which idea is more unbelievable, that we are alone, or that countless other civilizations exist somewhere out there. But even if one day we knew that we are not alone, the next great question would immediately remain. What happens inside a black hole? Physicists can observe what happens outside. They can calculate how black holes form. But what actually happens beyond the event horizon remains hidden from our view. It's as if the universe itself decided not to allow any spoilers at this point. And then there is the question that looks into the most distant future. Will the universe end someday? Some models say the universe will keep expanding forever, becoming colder and darker over time. Others suggest that this expansion will one day reverse and everything will collapse back into itself, a so-called Big Crunch. And then there is the idea of a big rip. In this scenario, space would expand faster and faster until eventually galaxies, stars, planets, and even atoms themselves would be torn apart. The farther we look into space, the more it seems that not only our knowledge grows, but also the part we will never be able to observe directly. And perhaps that is the real surprise. The universe is not just enormous. It also seems determined to keep some of its most important secrets to itself. But even if we knew the fate of the universe, one of the strangest questions of all would still remain. What is time, really? It seems self-evident, but that simple picture begins to fall apart in modern physics. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time does not pass at the same rate everywhere. The faster you move, or the stronger the force of gravity, the more slowly time passes. That hardly makes any difference in everyday life. But for satellites or astronauts, it certainly does. That aspect is pretty crazy, isn't it? And that leads to the next question. Do we actually have free will? If the universe follows fixed rules, are we really making our own decisions? Or do they only feel that way? Imagine you decide to keep watching this video in a moment. Was that truly your free decision? Or had it already been determined long before you became aware of it? I don't know which answer unsettles me more. That we have no free will, or that we may never be able to know for certain whether we have it. But even our own mind continues to present us with new mysteries. Why do we dream at all? Everyone knows that moment after a strange dream. While you're asleep, everything feels perfectly logical. Only after waking up do you realize how absurd it actually was. Every night, our brain creates entire worlds. And yet, to this day, we still don't know exactly why we dream in the first place. There are many theories. Perhaps the brain processes memories or simulates dangerous situations, or dreams are simply a byproduct of brain activity. It's entirely possible that each of these ideas describes part of the truth, but no one knows for sure. And that brings us to the next question. Why can't we remember our first years of life? Back then, every one of us learned an incredible amount. We learned to walk, to speak, and to understand the world around us. And yet, that very period remains almost completely hidden in darkness. It's as if someone simply tore the first chapters out of the book of our own life. We spend our entire lives inside our own minds. And yet, to this day, we still don't fully understand why it dreams or why early memories disappear. Perhaps the greatest unknown universe isn't out there among the stars at all, but right here between our ears. Are we making the same mistake with all of these questions? We naturally assume that every question must have an answer. After all, that assumption has worked remarkably well so far. But what if our brain simply wasn't made for certain mysteries? A dog will probably never understand what a tax return is. Not because it didn't have enough time to learn, but because its brain simply isn't built for it. To be fair, I'm sometimes not even sure humans really understand tax returns. Could the greatest mysteries of the universe work the same way? There may very well be answers. They may simply lie beyond what a human mind is capable of understanding. At first, that thought feels frustrating, but at the same time, it is also surprisingly liberating. Perhaps the value of these questions lies in solving them someday. Or perhaps they remind us that knowledge always has its limits. And that is what makes them so fascinating. Not because we don't know the answers, but because we don't even know whether we can ever know them. Could the real mistake lie much deeper? We naturally assume that our mind is capable of recognizing every truth, but perhaps that was never what it evolved to do. It evolved so that our ancestors could survive. The fact that we now want to use it to understand the origin of the universe was probably never its original purpose. So perhaps the most important boundary is not between knowledge and ignorance, but between what a human mind is capable of understanding and what lies fundamentally beyond its reach. And what if there are truths that a human brain simply cannot grasp, just as a fish will never understand what a star is? Then these 10 questions would not be unsolved mysteries at all. They would simply be a brief glimpse beyond the edge of what human beings are capable of understanding. And that is why I am less concerned with whether we will one day find all the answers. What occupies my mind far more is whether a human mind is capable of recognizing every truth. If the answer is no, then there would be mysteries that can never be solved, not because no answer exists, but because no one exists who could ever understand it.